this film, it really sort of took me back. It felt, because I'm from the kind of generation who grew up watching Road Trip and American Pie and Old School and all those sort of films. And watching this film just felt like a real nostalgia trip for me. It just felt like
I completely agree.
Yeah, and I was just wondering if that was when you were making it. Did you get a sense for that kind of that feeling? Was that something that you've only really been able to appreciate watching it now?
It had, the part of the filming process, the guy who directed it, Sam Macaroni, is such like a funny, like he wants everyone to be loose. Like I've never had a job where when you're going to film something, a lot of the time you like have one line or something that's in the script that you're like, I wish I didn't have to say that. That's so dumb. And I remember one day on set, I was like, hey, Sam, I don't know about this line. He's like, don't say it. It's like, oh, all right. He's like, yeah, just go with it. Whatever happens, just do something else. And I was like, oh, all right, cool. And it kind of tended to have that tone all throughout, where it was like, it felt like indie, sort of like jackassy. Like Sam just wanted to always keep moving and try all these different things. Pauly wanted to do the same thing. And it was awesome. There were so many things too when I was watching it where I couldn't believe that was in. I was like, oh my God, that got in there. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Jackass, so I'm just going to follow that up just by asking about Steve-O, because he's completely mad, but it's okay because he knows he's mad, so it's fine.
Yeah.
But, I'm just wondering about those scenes of him, because there's some of my favorite. There were some of my favorite in there where he has just full license just to go completely as sort of crazy as he wants. How were they to shoot, and what's he like? Was it when they started cut? Did he just suddenly get really serious, or is he just like that?
He's truly just the best. Like he was the person I was most nervous to meet because I love him so much. And so for many days leading up to it, like Sam introduced us and we texted a little bit, and I was very, anxious about meeting him. And he is shockingly professional. Like he's truly like, we would do a scene a handful of times, and then I would be like, well, I feel like we got that. And then he would be like, I think we got to do it one more time, and he'd be like, we do it again. And it was very fun. And in the very first time we see him, when he goes through that glass and then there's like blood on his hand, real blood. And that was our first take. And he just immediately was bleeding. And all these medics were like, do you want us to get anything out of the wound? Steve-O reaches into this open wound and he just pulls out a chunk of glass and is like, nah, it's fine. I was like, that's just how he is. It was awesome. It was so fun to be around him.
So when he smashes his head against the wall, was he actually doing that?
That was not real blood. No, that one was planned. But actually, that scene was really fun because those guys were all riding around on their skateboards. And right when Steve-O walks in the room, all of them are like, that's fucking Steve-O, And then he immediately perfectly ingratiates himself to them by just getting right on a board and trying to go, he goes right up the half pipe and everything. It was awesome. I feel like it was like a crash course on how to make like cool skater guys like you.
Yeah, it was just a film that was littered with great sort of little cameos and roles. Though I mean, it must have been great working with Billy Zane in those couple of scenes too.
Another person I was very nervous about, and let me tell you, I've never seen anyone do quite what Billy did. He brought his entire character to that. Like, so much of that character was on the first day of working with Billy. He said it was like the wedding scene, and he said basically he was like, yeah, I don't feel like, I'm not sure what my motivation is here. Like, I know I don't like your character, but I don't know. I kind of want more going on. So he's like adding in the stuff of like the PTSD and the like yelling and like the joke where Aimee comes over and says, Daddy, and we both say, yeah. That was Billy's joke. He was like, when she comes over and says that, then we should both say, yeah. And I should look at you disgustingly. Like he just brought so much depth immediately, and also to be looking at him and be like, that's fucking Billy Zane.
Interesting that line when she says daddy and you both say yes was actually the one that probably made me sort of laugh the most, actually. So it's good to know.
Me too. And it's also one of those ones where it's so funny and surprising that it to me came from Billy Zane that anytime I would see it or I would watch the trailer with my wife, I'd be like, that was Billy's joke. Billy pitched that joke.
But it sounds like so you did have this kind of freedom on set then to improvise and inject some of yourself. But as a comedian yourself, because I always wonder when comedians sign up to kind of comedy projects and if they're just reading off a script, they don't really sometimes have the chance to implement loads of themselves as often into the role. But did you feel like you had license here to really inject some of your own comedic sensibilities into this character?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, on the sort of like inside baseball, level of things, this was the only job I've ever had that was an offer. Like they asked me. I just got a call, and the producer and the director were like, we have this movie we want to do, and all this. And fully from that, it gave me this different feel on set where I was like, they wanted me. I didn't audition and trick them into wanting me. They just asked for me. And so it immediately made me feel like they wanted me to do whatever my thing is. And I kind of feel like everyone felt that, where everyone kind of felt like, hey, they asked me. So like, I feel like that was why Billy had the freedom he had. That's why Lou Ferrigno had the freedom he had. Erik Griffin had the freedom he had. Pauly had the freedom. Like everyone, I think it was this sense of like, they asked me. I think they want me to do the thing I do, whatever that is.
Yeah, it's funny talking about people that you could be afraid of sort of working alongside. Also the Hulk, it just happened.
Yeah, I know. And also literally the nicest person ever. Yeah. He was so like tender. Although when we shook hands, it was classic, my hand just disappearing in his hand moment, which I loved.
Yeah. So obviously you play the kind of, it's one of my favorite comedic sort of tropes, and it's something that I always feel that you get in like a lot of British sitcoms as well, which is this idea where you play the kind of straight guy that represents the viewer. But actually, you're just as ridiculous as all the characters that circle around you. It must have been quite fun to play this, but did you have any reference points from movies or TV sitcoms as kind of characters that you helped to get to access this role?
I guess initially my first thought was Old School with Will Ferrell as Frank the Tank, you know, where he just he's ready to go right back into being a college party animal. And I also felt like a sort of instinct I had, whenever I watch something that has a straight man, I always think, yeah, but in reality, the straight man wants to do the other things too. And so for the character to get to do that, I remember reading it in the script, like, reaching the point where he just wants to get fucked up. And I was like, oh, great. Oh, that's awesome. That feels so real to me.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone turn down a shot. Let's be honest.
No I know. It's humiliating to turn one down.
But as the straight man, is your job in many scenes to keep a straight face, obviously, because you're the one who,
yes.
There's lots of people doing things around you, and you've always got to, as your character, had to try and keep his kind of dignity about him. Was that quite tough?
Also, Pauly kept kind of saying to me, he would like talk about, you know, his experience through the 90s and, you know, the early aughts and doing movies and stuff. And he was like, the thing that makes his comedy work is the like disgust on the end of the straight man who just looks at whatever he's saying and is just, you know, so he was always encouraging like even further like diametric opposition to his character type, which was very fun.
Yeah, because of course you guys have a good old-fashioned feud, I think we can call it.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a feud? And I don't mean a kind of adult feud that involves like violence, but even just at school. Was there ever a kid, and you don't have to name this kid, but anyone that just had this kind of unwavering...
Absolutely. Yeah, there was one kid in college I had a feud with, and he once stole my roommate's bike. And I was so disturbed by this that I enacted a truly psychopathic revenge on him, which was that this guy, he was like a townie, and he had a rainbow painted bike. And one night I stole it, I took it apart completely, and then I laid all the pieces on his front lawn.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah, I'm really, tit for tat.
Yeah, I'm really pleased I had an answer for that, because I did an interview yesterday with these characters from a new sitcom over here, and it was 3 people on Zoom. And the whole in the sitcom, there's a big prank they play on someone. And my question was, have any of you ever played a prank or had a prank played on you? Silence. And it wasn't like normal silence, it was Zoom silence, which is obviously like a new worse type of silence. So, a far deeper
silence.
So I'm pleased that you have had a feud with someone. There's an answer. And I was wondering too about, because when you get sort of films like this, which has a lot of comedic set pieces, was there a particular day on set or a particular scene that you most enjoyed shooting?
Yeah, there were 2. I really thoroughly enjoyed the just the entire wedding sequence, like the fighting, all the props, you know, breaking the flower pot and all that, you know, wrestling with Pauly. And also because there were just so many stunts that day. And that was a real sort of like Jackass day where it was a lot of, I wasn't doing anything and just watching like a huge fire, something explode, guy on the jet ski. That day was very fun. And then the day with the Flocka possum, because I have never worked with like puppeteers before, and the dudes, they never talked, but they imbued the possum with a ton of personality. It was very like we would be sitting there as they're waiting to set up the shot, and the guy would just be like turning the puppet to look at me, and I would say things, and it would like react. It was so weird and so fun, and it also just looked amazing. I love puppetry, animatronics, all that stuff is so cool.
Oh, so that wasn't a real possum.
No, I know.
Magic of the movies. I was wondering too about just going back about your, obviously, this is a big role for you, your kind of leading role in a big kind of comedy.
Yes.
Because I was interested in just how your past, and if you always wanted to be an actor, and if, just the kind of your route to getting here, and if it's been, how it's been.
I grew up in Chicago, big comedy city. I did like a play when I was in 4th grade, and I was a comedic relief in it. And it's that classic story of like, you get your first laugh and you're like, I want this all the time, And then my mom worked on the North Side. I grew up on the South Side, but my mom would take me to the North Side to Piven Theater, which was like run by Jeremy Piven's parents. And it was like improv, but like theatery. And then from there, I went on to Second City and I did this teen ensemble there until I was 18, and then IO and all that sort of stuff. And so for a long time for me, the thing I really liked was improv. And I think it was kind of part of growing up on the South Side of Chicago, where everyone is like proto-masculine and, there's this like toughness that everyone's always trying to put up. I think I felt self-conscious about acting, but I was like, but improv is cool because it's different or something. Like I have more power in it or something. And then when I moved to LA and I started to discover the ways that you could act and do improv and get jobs like this, or I did a Netflix show like last year called Brews, where basically it's jobs like these are like the dream job. It's what the dream really is, where you're doing improv, but you're acting, but it's, like sometimes you'll have a job and they'll say like, yeah, and then you can improvise a fraction of that line. And to me, I go like, well, that's not improv. I'm just going to say, I just not memorized, I guess is what that is. But then you have a job like this where Sam and the other writer guys, everyone just wants they just want you to do the thing that you do. And so it felt so much like, oh, thank God I was so obsessed with improv, where now I can do that and do this and make this work. And it was great. But yeah, it very much felt like the last couple of jobs I've had were the ones that I dreamt about as a kid, where it's not just acting. Cause I think, I at some point I'll be in a drama, I guess, but I don't even know what that will be like. But, this felt the most like the exact thing that I wanted to do, this and Brews Brothers.
Yeah, because Brews Brothers. Because is there any talk of a second season for that yet? Do you know? Because I know
Netflix gave us the COVID cancellation.
Oh no, I
know.
Oh, that's such a shame. Yeah.
I know, dude. I was so bummed.
Yeah. So did you ever have?
I'm trying to forcibly create a second season for it. I've been working on a script with the guy who played Chewie, Marcus Ray, and so we've been working on this script that centers on a different kind of character he would play. But basically, we're doing it with everyone who was on the production staff for Brews Brothers, and we're just every character is someone who was on that show. So we're gonna try and get a second season, but it'll just be a different show.
Yeah, because I've interviewed your lovely wife before when she was on the set of Holmes and Watson when she was.
Oh, nice! Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I was just wondering about how it is sort of being married to someone else in the industry. Do you take work home? Do you like to talk about roles and projects, or is it because you're both in it together? Do you almost have to?
No, we don't really talk about it that much. It's weird. It's like there was some stuff too with this movie where there's like all this nudity and like naked girls are like dancing on me or whatever. But then I would get home. And then Lauren would be like, oh, how was it? I was like, oh, it's weird. Same old, like, there's a lot of people today. It was like 50 people or something. And then that's kind of it. And then we watched the movie. I'm like, oh, yeah, that was that day that I was like, that was so weird or whatever, And she's like, oh, on a show. We met on like a TBS sitcom. And so I think we just have that. And almost, it's like neither... It's like the only thing you want to talk about is a surprising thing that like a surprising joke you managed to pull off. Like I remember when Lauren came home from like filming Between Two Ferns, she would every couple of days she'd go like, oh, actually, Zach said this funny thing today. And then we do that. And then I know nothing else about what's going on. I think we both like that.
Yeah, just come home and go, you'll never guess what Billy Zane did today.
yeah. You say one joke and then you go, okay, let's watch something and not talk about that anymore.
Yeah. But do you ever hope to collaborate together on something?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We did like a short film together, like right before we got married. And it was just so fun. Lauren directed it, and it's so fun and so easy. But it's also one of those things that I feel like we both have this like professional perspective of like, it's gross to try to force it, you know? So we're like, it'll just happen. We'll do something together at some point. Or we were talking about if there was going to be a second season of Brews Brothers. Greg Schaefer had a part he wanted Lauren to do. So it's always that kind of thing where I feel like when someone likes working with me, then they're like, oh, well, Lauren's very funny too. I wonder if we could get her in this, you know? And so I love that, but so far it hasn't happened, but it's still a dream.
Because since obviously we've been in this lockdown everyone's been in lockdown, and one of the only kind of good things to have come out of it, and I know lots of people have suffered, but I've been able to really spend loads of time with my wife for the first time in ages, because she's a lawyer, so she goes to the office every day, but actually we're both working from home, and we get to actually spend. I'm just wondering about yourself, because you're both actors, which obviously just by nature means lots of travel and lots of kind of gigs and working, and I'm just wondering about how, in regards to lockdown, has it actually been quite a nice time to actually just spend some time, not just together, but just with family and actually just take a bit of a breather? Because
it has genuinely been good. Yeah, where it's like we both have this like deep existential dread basically every day where we can't believe the nature of life right now. But then we will always pause and go, but I'm really happy I'm stuck with you. You know, it could be really bad. Like we have like such instant shorthand, like for improv, like jokiness, you know, it is fun every day. And it has been very nice too. Like I was saying to Lauren, I was like, if I was not with you and I was alone during this, I would have gone so insane by now. It would just be unbearable. And so it's like, she perfectly complements my whole energy. And I think I compliment hers as well.
So we're very finally, because my last question, it's just about if you have anything sort of coming up, and there's a kind of second part to that question. It's just, I mean, the Guest House, it feels like the sort of comedy that could potentially we could revisit one day. You know, you get comedy sequels. I'm just wondering if that'd ever be anything you'd be entertaining.
I would love to do a sequel to it. I would love to do a sequel to Guest House. I found it very hilarious because also I would like to know what my character's parents are like. You know, I'm curious who would raise the person I am in that. And also, I mean, I'll say sort of honestly, in terms of like other things coming up, the possibility of things coming up feels like a dream to me. Like I don't really, we're in such a weird time. I have like little things on the horizon, but I also am like oddly incredulous about them where I'm like, are we ever going to be able to do these things? Are we actually going to do it? So, just podcasts basically is my life right now. But it's been cool actually that Lauren and I have both had a handful of things come out during quarantine. That's been a weird experience where, you know, my first like big show comes out and I'm just sitting on the couch, you know, there's nothing to do about it. You're just like, oh yeah, good. That's out now. Okay. Yeah.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mike.
Yeah, this is great.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey!